Hello, welcome to our second ever Ask Anna MP for Shipley live event. My name is Jamie. I am the communications officer for Anna, so I'm going to be kind of doing a little bit of hosting, asking you a few questions. It's been really great, the amount of questions that we've had submitted. We've had, to be honest, way too many that we can do all in one session, otherwise we'd be here till next weekend, I think. So we'll try and get through as many as we can. So Anna, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about what you've been up to this week or this month?
Yeah, well thanks Jamie, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Yeah, it's been a really busy month. Obviously very exciting week this week with the budget announcements. And I was really delighted to actually get a shout out and mention for the work I'd done to raise awareness around carers, family carers, and particularly issues around carers allowance. So it was really good to see in the budget that they've increased the earnings limit so that carers can work more hours and earn more without getting penalised. So that was really positive. But yeah, I've actually been busy in Parliament speaking on lots of issues, unpaid carers, Gaza, brought up the issues around Cullingworth battery storage, celebrating some of what our great local small businesses do. And I actually got my first Prime Minister's question. So that happened to be the week that Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, was covering for the Prime Minister Keir. He was at an international conference, and so I got to ask about care workers' pay and the really great step forward we're going to make, bringing in a fair pay agreement for care workers in the Employment Rights Bill, which I voted on, along with GB Energy Bill, Hereditary Peers Bill, so we've ended hereditary peers in the Lords, the Renters' Rights Bill, which gives renters more rights. And the other big announcement this month is that I am now a member of the Public Accounts Committee, which is a really important committee where Parliament holds all of the government departments to account for how they spend our public money.
Nice. And you've been out and about in the constituency?
Yes, as always. Yeah. I love getting out and about, Jamie, as you know. So bit of shopping at Belden Farmers Market, went along to the Shipley Eco Fair where there was this great range of local organisations and businesses. I helped celebrate the 25th birthday of a local group, the Airedale and Wharfdale Autism Resource Group that support families with children with autism. And I got along to one of the Medicine Scout fundraisers, among other things, but yeah.
Yeah, and just to note as well about, what the team in the constituency here have been up to. We've had 1,800 emails this month that we've managed to get replies to, whether that's a member of the team here or Anna getting back to people. So yeah, it's been quite intense, but it's really good as well. So I guess we'll kind of jump into some questions.
Yeah.
Just so you know as well, anybody watching, I'm also watching the live chat. So if you do have any questions you want to ask, feel free to pop them in, and we'll see if we can get to those as well. And just before we do, just to mention that, we've received a lot of questions, so we won't have time to get to all of them, unfortunately, and in the interest of fairness, some people did submit more than one, so we will be limiting it to, one question per person. But if you didn't get your question answered, please do feel free to email us on anna.dixon.mp@parliament.uk, and we'll get back to you on that question as soon as we can. So the first question, Anna, is from Becky Tibb. Mm-hmm. She said, how are you planning on tackling antisocial behaviour in Shipley Town Centre and making it safer and more welcoming place to visit?
Yeah, so thanks Becky for your question. Obviously I speak to both local residents and out and about speaking to local businesses. I was up in Shipley Town Centre this lunchtime, and it is really important that people feel safe to come into town, do their shopping and not feel that they're going to be bothered by antisocial behaviour. I did a walkabout on one of the estates near the town centre within community staff, and they obviously also get on it in relation to tenants in some of those blocks. I regularly meet with the local police and can raise these issues with them so that they can do extra patrols. And obviously in the long term, I now as a member of the Shipley Towns Fund, we're looking at a total regeneration of the market square, which will improve lighting and things like that. So I think there's a lot going on where we can do that. And then nationally, in terms of policy, Labour government, we're absolutely committed to making sure that we crack down particularly on shoplifting. So we're already looking to reverse a policy that the Conservatives had, which was that they weren't going to prosecute shoplifting under a certain value. So basically we're going after any shoplifter and making sure that that's tackled. And obviously as part of the budget there'll be investment coming in more neighbourhood policing.
Joe MK said, "Hi Anna, some info on the approach to up-levelling youth services in our area would be great." Thanks.
Okay, yeah, that was Joe. Yes, so thanks Joe for that question. So we have seen over the last 14 years with the austerity under the Conservative government massive cuts in youth services and youth provision. And obviously our young people, it's been a really tough time for them going through COVID, which I think has just made the situation just a lot more difficult. So we've recognised that, and the Labour government are investing again in our young people and youth services through the new Young Futures programme. So the idea here is that we're going to set up a network of hubs where there'll be youth workers, there'll be mental health support workers and careers advisors on hand to support young people. Obviously, you need to start young, start early. So in addition to that, we've made announcements around ensuring that there's funding for childcare, for free breakfast clubs. We're rolling that out across every primary school, and right through to make sure that young people, as they come out of school, get the opportunities for training. Yeah. So the budget announced an extra £300 million for colleges like Shipley College, as well as £40 million for around the apprenticeships levy, so that can get used to provide skills training for our young people. So hopefully we'll turn the situation around and really ensure that all our young people get those opportunities through school and then into adult life.
Thanks, Anna. Hope that was the answer you're looking for, Joe. Next question is from Robin McDonald, who asked, "Hi Anna, can you explain what has been done about the lack of ADHD assessments in Bradford, since we have been told it will be 7 years and more to have one?"
Yeah, so Robin, I'm really sorry to hear about the long waits. I don't know if this is affecting you or your children who might be in a long waiting list for an ADHD assessment on the NHS. And I know from first-hand experience, the stress, anxiety and challenges that are facing parents of children who are neurodiverse, and particularly that period where there may be no diagnosis, and therefore it's really difficult to get the appropriate support either from the school or from other services. And I have met with a lot of parents of SEND children to really understand some of the struggles and the devastating impact that this lack of access. So I was really delighted to hear this week Rachel Reeves in the budget announcing £1 billion that will go specifically into SEND services, and that will be part of how we're going to increase access to diagnosis and support. And I know that the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Wes Streeting, will work closely with the Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson. And obviously locally it is about joining up the work of the NHS, schools and local government. And so I'm sure that as these improvements come through with Bradford's Children's Services and the Trust, that we'll see improvements there, and hopefully as well with the extra funding going into the NHS, we'll see improvements there in those waiting times coming down. So yeah, really sorry Robin that you're experiencing those long waits, and if we can ever help with individual cases, then please do get in touch.
Thank you, Anna. The next question we've got is from Janet Ellis, who I'm guessing is a resident in Bingley. She said, "Hi Anna, the people of Bingley and the surrounding areas devastated to hear that the levelling up money for the rebuilding of Bingley Pool hasn't been honoured. What are the plans now for the Bingley Pool building, the town hall and the car park?"
Yeah, so Janet, obviously I, along with you, am really disappointed. But the truth of it is that the original levelling up bid was put in back in September 2022, and it wasn't awarded. And it was in a very last minute round of funding that was given out in March 2024, as it turns out, just before the general election. And that was a hollow promise, because the Conservatives actually hadn't put any funding against those commitments. So when the Chancellor and the team got in there and reviewed all of these commitments, this is where this £22 billion black hole has come from, because basically the money just wasn't there. And sadly, Bingley Pool was one of those, of the later Levelling Up Fund bids, for which no money had been allocated. I mean, just how irresponsible is that? They just made commitments that they didn't have any idea how they were going to pay for. So, the Chancellors had to put forward an honest budget to sort of give a clean sweep and say, right, we've got to reset this so that we're actually going to balance the budget in, what we're raising will fund our commitments. And that was the honest budget that she put forward this week to try and sort of start to fix the problems the country's facing. Now, that doesn't help us here, does it, in Bingley? So I'll continue to work really hard, obviously, with Bradford Council, Friends of Bingley Pool, Bingley Town Council and the local Bingley councillors to really now sort of see where we are. Obviously, we were before March, before this promise was made, also looking at alternative funds. We've been doing that over many years now. There've been work going on to try and see what the future, both of Bingley Pool as well as you say, the wider area of the town hall and the car park. So clearly, with the news only this week coming through the budget that confirming that money in fact was never there, we'll take stock, and I'll keep speaking up to make sure we get the investment needed for that regeneration in the centre of Bingley. But share your frustration, Janet.
Amazing. And again, anybody watching, do feel free to drop a comment. If you've got a question for Anna, we can get to that live. But moving on to the next one that we got submitted beforehand. This one was from Sarah Marshall, and she said, there is a massive problem with the buses between Willesden and Bradford. It's like they've not bothered to run half of them because it's the holidays. What about folk who have jobs to go to or are trying to be environmental?
Hi Sarah, thanks very much for your question. Well, I mean, rural bus services have been run down ever since really the deregulation and privatisation of the buses. And that's why I'm very proud that under a Labour government we're bringing buses back into public control. In fact, the West Yorkshire Mayor Tracy Brabin has already gone through a consultation to take powers to take those buses back into public control. And what does that mean? Well, it means instead of the private companies sort of running unreliable services, cutting back on timetables, cutting back on routes because they don't make a profit, what we can do is ensure that there's a good coverage and a proper network of reliable and regular buses across the area. Clearly that is extremely frustrating, particularly the lack of frequency and reliability for villages like Willesden, but similarly Collingworth, Denham, Eldwick, Gilstead. Our villages do, a lot of people do rely on those buses to get both to work, but also to hospital appointments, to the shops and other things. And so obviously with the cost of living, lots of people struggle. They can't afford to run a car, it's very expensive. And we do want fewer people to use cars for environmental reasons, as you quite rightly say. So that's why we need to invest in a better system of public transport. And I'm pleased again that the Chancellor this week specifically mentioned the work on the West Yorkshire Mass Transit Scheme, which would make sure that we have a much more integrated public transport across West Yorkshire.
Yeah, no, she mentioned specifically at Bradford Foster Square as well in the budget, and some electrifying of the lines in the north of England as well. So I think there's a lot of really positive stuff
about transport,
about transport around here. We've got a bit of a blunt one coming up. Doug Stewart asked, please could you tell me, is it true that you get a £50 food allowance when in Parliament?
No, that's not true.
But there you go, Doug. We answered that one.
That was a nice quick one.
That was a nice quick one. And the last one that I have prepared here, so again, if anybody does want to ask a question, feel free to drop it in the comments. This is from Kevin Ewell. He said, hi Anna, how do you intend to vote on Kim Leadbeater's private members bill on assisted dying when it comes up on the 29th? I know it hasn't been published yet, but thanks.
Yeah, so I've been spending a lot of time listening to different perspectives on assisted dying. It's not an issue that I sort of have a firm view on. In fact, I am undecided, and I think I'm in the position where I want to understand much more of the detail about how this would work. How would we implement it? How would this actually work? How do we protect vulnerable people from perhaps being coerced? How do we ensure that the doctors, you know, if they are assisting people, are they the same doctors who are also the ones who should be, you know, giving life-saving treatment and support to die well? So there's a lot of questions I have about it, and I've been attending a lot of different events in Parliament that have been put on for MPs. So I've gone from listening to some family members of those who've gone to Dignitas in Switzerland, just talking about some of the sort of distress that they've gone through, talking to people, listening to doctors of differing views, lawyers about the legal implications of this, hospices, and just some of the detail on generally on public opinion on these issues. And unfortunately there's a lot of misunderstanding. A lot of people don't really know what assisted dying is, because obviously we do have palliative care where people are not being treated anymore. They are being supported with pain relief and other things to die well. And sometimes those can hasten death. And we do obviously have, you know, withdrawal of treatment, and that is part of legal palliative care. So what we're talking about here is physician-assisted suicide, where doctor would prescribe a lethal cocktail and people would effectively shorten their life. So it's a lot to think about it, and I'm trying to make sure I hear sort of balanced views, look at the evidence from abroad. And I will be holding a local roundtable and doing a visit to a local hospice ahead of that vote. Obviously we haven't seen the detail yet, they haven't actually published the legislation, so I think it will be really critical to take a good look at the legislation when it's published by Kim.
Yeah, so that is the end of the prepared questions that we had. So, you know, we've still got some time left, so if you do have a question, feel free to pop it in. Anna, just to kind of give people a bit of time, maybe I could ask you about, you know, having the budget this week, and, you know, the biggest thing that you've spoken about in Parliament so far has been on carers and unpaid carers. So, I mean, can you just tell us a bit more about, you know, how it felt to have been kind of like a champion on that issue, and then for it to come up in the budget, and for you to be personally name-checked?
Yeah. Well, I mean, amazing. And just to give a sense, really, of just how significant this is. So some of the organisations like Carers UK who support carers, you know, they've been raising this issue for many years. I mean, literally this earnings limit hasn't been properly reviewed for decades. And what it's meant is that obviously as the minimum wage has gone up, people have had to reduce their hours. And we've also heard about this scandal that people, if they go slightly over the earnings limit, then have to repay their carers allowance. And some of them have been getting into debt unknown to them to DWP, and DWP have been chasing them for thousands of pounds. So many people have got extremely anxious. Carers allowance isn't a benefit that you can really live off. So families where there is someone with a disability and a carer can often be living in poverty. Yeah. So this is something where I really felt very acutely aware of just what a big problem it was. And so I've really taken every opportunity to raise this both publicly and privately, writing to the Minister and so on, since I've been in Parliament, convening and hosting and some discussions between Carers UK and the ministers, and being part of those conversations. So it will make a difference to thousands and thousands of people who can now confidently, well, if they can either claim carers allowance for the first time, so that will allow people who are working more hours, and then those who've been limiting their hours or dropping out of work because it just wasn't worth it, can feel more confident now to take some hours of work alongside the amazing work they do for free by looking after their loved ones. And so for me it just feels like already after just a few months in Parliament to have made a difference, and I hope I'll be able to do that on lots of other issues. over the coming months and years. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if we could just talk a little bit about, you know, some of the stuff we've got coming up, maybe next month, over the next couple of months. I think a personal highlight of mine would be the water bill.
Yes.
I know that it's a big issue that you campaigned on, was the sewage dumping in the River Aire and the River Wharfe. I wondered if you could maybe just tell us a little bit about the water bill.
Yeah.
And why it was such a big priority of yours to tackle that issue.
Yeah, so absolutely. Well, you know, growing up in Wharfedale, paddling in the River Wharfe, and as an adult swimming in the River Wharfe, you know, to discover that we were paying our water bills for the companies to process our sewage, and actually they hadn't been doing the job. And on many hours throughout the year, they were dumping untreated sewage in the rivers. Well, firstly disgusted me and then angered me. And I think, you know, the Ilkley Clean River campaign have absolutely led the way on this across the country. They've been at the forefront of showing how citizen action, citizen science, getting that bathing status, done a lot of pressure and lobbying to show up what the problem is. And the problem is that these companies have been dumping sewage even when there's low rainfall, and that's basically illegal. So we've already brought in, you know, we're bringing in this bill to make some early steps to strengthen regulation and to clamp down on some of the companies. But the Secretary of State has also announced that we need to do a bigger review to just look for the long term at what some of the problems are. So yeah, I mean, again, you know, Labour government, we said we'd tackle it. First 100 days, you know, we're getting on it. We're doing the things that we promised in our manifesto. So yeah, I'll be staying close to that as it goes from the Lords to the House of Commons and gets debated.
Yeah. So we just had a couple come in. Robin asking about ADHD assessments. Anna did do that one a few minutes ago. So after the live's ended, this live will stay on our page as like a recorded video. So I'd recommend just going back and watching it again, and you'll be able to hear Anna's answer in there.
Thanks, Robin, for your question.
And then we've got a bit of a jerky question here from Lynn Greenwood, who asked, what cabinet position would you want if you could hypothetically ever have one?
Well, that's very nice if you think I've even got it in me to do that. And you know, obviously, I'm not looking for a job at the moment. I think we've got a fantastic, you know, front bench team, many of whom have been doing these roles as shadow ministers and shadow secretaries of state, so they know their stuff. And it is just brilliant to see them now being able to take decisions and instead of saying what they would do if they were in government, are now actually able to enact things. I'm hoping through my role in the Public Accounts Committee, I'll actually get exposed to lots of different areas of government policy. So obviously my experience today largely in health and social care and some of the issues to do with ageing and pensions. But I'm hoping through my work in the Public Accounts Committee. So who knows? Let's see.
Well, I think that was a fun question to end off on there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you to everyone who's watched and everyone who's asked a question. And thank you, Anna.
Yeah, and look out for another one. We'll try and make this regular.
Try and do another one soon.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody.